Today, protesters around the country took part in a national day of action against the government's plans to cut $2.2 billion from the budget for higher education. Their message was loud and clear.
No cuts, no fees, no corporate universities.
The Coalition unveiled the new measure in the mid-year economic update to replace the $2.8 billion of funding cuts and fee increases in the 2017 budget, which were blocked by the Senate. The handbrake on funding will put pressure on universities to cap student enrolments, effectively putting an end to the demand-driven system introduced by former Prime Minister Julia Gillard. Students fear that these changes will see a blowout in costs similar to that of the US, where the decision to cut funding for the university subsidies has seen graduate debt soar.
The United States has an atrocious higher education system where student debt there is now $1.3 trillion. That's more than mortgage debt in the United States, and that is what the government wants to bring in here.
The government has imposed a 2-year funding freeze by capping Commonwealth contributions at 2017 levels until 2020, at which point the government intends to introduce a performance-based funding model. A lifetime limit on student loans will also be imposed. With many universities no longer receiving additional Commonwealth grants for domestic student enrolments, international students are among those being targeted for budget savings. There is mounting concern for the knock-on effects of passing this legislation, namely that the sector now relies on the international student market, all to make up for the government's funding shortfalls.
As there's been a push as well to rely a lot more heavily on international students, which is terrible to treat, a group of students as some cash cow.
Not long after the budget was announced, partial exceptions began with the University of Tasmania, Southern Cross University, and the University of the Sunshine Coast, all receiving additional Commonwealth-supported places. The University of the Sunshine Coast has been promised an additional 1,200 places in 2020, growing to 3,600 ongoing places. However, numbers this far out are subject to change. With an election due in the next 12 months, and Labor indicating it intends to reinstate the demand-driven system, the funding freeze may be over much sooner than expected. If the Coalition survives in office, shelved plans to deregulate university fees may resurface on the agenda. Reporting for ABC News, Bridget Haig.